back to the More Taco Encounter. We're glad to have you guys here with us. So you guys remember I was up in Madison recently, and I have my beautiful friend up there, Anase. We were talking about kind of the state of our world and how chaotic it is. And you see every time you flip on the TV, there's just so much anger, so much division, so much difficulty that we're just surrounded by. And we're thinking back, and we're talking about the election that's coming up. We're talking about the state of politics, the state of who you can trust, really, when you're talking about like leadership and stuff like that. And we kind of started reflecting back, and everybody has their own opinions, but I'm really looking back and I'm thinking about, man, we've been divided pre-Trump, pre-Obama. Like, we've been divided for a long time. Obviously, we have maybe a little bit of a fairy tale outlook of when we're growing up as kids, because we're not politically inclined. We're just kids. We're like, oh, yeah, this dude was hooking up with a girl under his desk. That's weird, you know? But we didn't really like think about it. And I feel like the division in our country it's beyond political. And I'm of the belief that money is driving everything, and that money is dictating how these things are happening around us. And we all poor jamokes sitting here voting, oh, what should I do? There are rich people behind the scenes in the dark making money off of our foolishness, regardless of what side of the spectrum we're on. And I feel like that's been happening for a long time. But if I really feel like it got triggered, if I'm looking back, it was in 2000. Now, this is obviously, I'm biased and I'm thinking about my own life experiences and stuff like that. But that vote between Bush and Gore with the hanging Chad,
Florida,
in Florida, and these things didn't get poked through. That was like the beginning of some political turmoil.
It's a simple Scantron, dude.
And it was some intense stuff.
Got a number 2.
And
they tell you that.
I feel like 9/11. So I brought up to my friend Anase, and I was like, I feel like it was happening back then. And 9/11 kind of brought us back together, because war and difficulty tends to be a unifying force if you're united as a country fighting against something, as opposed to a civil war or something like that, right? But
Joe, you know where I'm going with this.
Then she brought up how would Muslim Americans feel the same way, and how they were targeted and all these things. And you talk about tons of things the three of us have discussed over the years: Black Lives Matter,
Israel, Hamas,
trans lives, LGBTQ, women's, all these things where anger, rising, division, blah, blah, blah. And you have all these topics. And I feel like there's money behind it all. Nico, where do you think, when you hear division in our country, what triggers in your mind? And do you have could you put a finger? My finger is thrown onto year 2000, things starting to unravel, but I'm not old enough to know anything prior. Do you have a thought about that?
So I think that's multi-layered. If you peel apart my multi-layered idiotic conspiracy brain, if you will.
Onion it.
Yeah. So I don't think it was recent. I think it's always been a war tactic. Divide and conquer. That's the oldest war tactic in the book. I think that the United States has one of the smartest governments out there, and we have a lot of resources. And I think that for somebody to think that our government want to do some shit to get what they want, they're very naive to think so.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things.
You mean to our own, to its own citizens,
correct?
Or whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
There's no
holds barred for them.
Between the FBI, the every acronym, whatever organization you want to throw out there, they are government entities. I think that they have intelligent people to get what they want out of it. So to say that it happened recently, I don't think it was recent. I think it's always been. I think because we have social media and it's at our fingertips, I think we see it more prominent. I think we get those resources a lot quicker. I think we see it happening in real time more now. To say that war does bring us together, to an extent, yes. But the elite they want war to happen. It's that military industrial complex. You think about World War
There's
II.
money to be made.
You think about World War
Yeah.
II. When
That's what brought us back
Yeah.
from the brink of the Depression.
Yeah, and I'm not going to steal it from Rogan. I'll give him credit because I was listening to him and Schultz. They were, and I agree with them. I'm just using it because I'm not going to act like it didn't just happen over the weekend and I didn't hear it. So they brought up a good point, and that I do agree with as far as you think about Ford. Before the war, they weren't making tanks; they were making cars, and all of a sudden, they're making tanks for the Axis and the Allied. So now you're making your $20 million that you're making a year is now $100 billion. So when the war is over, they don't want to go back to that $20 million. We need another war. We need to make more product. So I do think that war is beneficial to the elite. Now, if you move forward to our time right now, talk about taxes, you talk about our middle class right now and how money is given to other countries in war efforts and fighting this war that's really not ours. We're not even securing our own borders, but yet we're securing other people's borders, if you will. If you go back to 2019, there are documents and there are whistleblowers that have said that Ukraine has always been a piggy bank for the elite. Now it's still being funneled through them through war. Our taxes, yeah, technically the
Can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
So
the piggy bank theory with Ukraine.
So funneling it back, embezzling it back into their own pockets. They're using taxpayers' money to come back to them. So
sending money
over there for
whatever.
Yes, for aid, if whatnot, and then they funnel it back through the Democratic Party because whether they get it offshore accounts and then move it to crypto, move it to here, and then a donor moves over here and I'm going to donate $3 million to this Democratic fund, if you will. There's a way of embezzling it. There's a way of funneling it and laundering it, and it's the oldest way to clean your money, if you will.
Yeah.
And I think it's always been there. I think now people are being more open to it because as far as the internet and as far as our resources. So to say that it's happened recently, no, I think it's always been there. And going back to the workforce, I mean, now I'm connecting different ideas, so I'm kind of jumping around. Rockefeller back in the day came up with the school system. He wanted people to obey and he wanted obedient school kids to go to college. I'm
going to tell you right now, that doesn't exist anymore.
Well
obedience.
No,
I am telling you
no.
For a fact.
Wait, no, hear me out. The students that do obey and the students that do make it to college, those are the kids that get their degrees. Those are the kids that go to corporations. Those are the kids that are eventually CEOs. Mm-hmm. Those obedient ones, the few, the far in between, those are the ones they want because they're going to run their corporations the way they want to. The ones that aren't obedient, they go into the workforce. We're going to take their money, their taxpayer dollars. Now we're going to have a separation in classes. We're going to keep taking their money. So now the elite, the upper middle class, they're moving higher. They're trying to get rid of the middle class. They want people at the bottom. They don't want you to own anything.
Middle class is getting destroyed.
Yeah. They don't want you to own anything. They want you to rent everything. They want BlackRock is taking over everything. So my conspiracy, government, everything, the elite is one thing. And the lower middle class and the lower class, that's a separation of power right there.
So let me ask you a question.
It's always been here.
Let me ask you a question because I consider myself like a politically moderate person. I'm not a hugely political person as it is. I consider myself a traditional swing voter. I hear what you're saying. And when you talked about like Ukraine funneling it back through the Democratic Party and stuff like that, when I look at it, I see the elites, all of them. Democratic, Republic, like it's.
Oh, you have rhinos that do it too.
This is not a party-based system. This is a money-based system.
Yeah.
Who can they get to do what they want? We don't care whether you ride a donkey or you ride an elephant, as long as your money's green.
Correct.
And as long as you will do what we say. And so that's what's really hard. And obviously we talked about this political conversation. We're looking at this and we're like, dude, who do you choose? And I'm not even talking presidential elections. I'm talking in any election, because once you get past, I believe there are people, I'm going to use my own career as a background for this. Teachers get into teaching because we love kids and we want to help. And I remember being very early in my teaching career and being like, I'm like joyfully blind. I'm going to change the world and I'm going to love these kids so well that they just want to learn and they're vibrant and this and that. And then over time, you become realistic. You get weathered. You see how things go. And I believe politicians are in that same vein. I believe
Of course.
people start off in politics because they're like, they want change.
Mhm.
They want revolution. They want to help. It starts out with local governments here, here, and here. But then eventually you take a little money here, you take a little money there, you blah, blah, blah. Now you're a millionaire. Now you want this. Now you want that. Now, in order to win that next election to secure your pay, you have a PAC or a super PAC in your back pocket telling you you'll sign this environmental bill because we're going to do this in the coal industry over here, and et cetera, and they're going to get their cash. And I don't think that's a party-based thing. I think that's all of them.
No, and I think it goes back that they need to have single bill legislation, because if you have one topic, one bill, one legislation, one vote, then you have one thing to discuss. But when you come to,
they bury stuff on page 392 of these documents,
because they'll go up to every congressman, they'll go up to every, whoever it is, every senator, whoever's signing these bills, whoever has to vote on it, they'll say your shit's on page 4,000, and it'll be a little paragraph.
Mhm.
Is that what you want? Yes. Okay. They don't care about the previous 300 or 3,999 pages. They care about page 4,000.
Mm-hmm.
So if they have enough separated amongst everybody else, they're going to sneak in that one thing that nobody's paying attention to. Mm-hmm. And it adds up over and over again. And it fucks all of us in the end. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, and you talk about divide. Well, I think right now, I'm going to say it like it is, because Biden's fucking up so much. I think it's creating more of everybody coming back together. I think everybody's realizing that, and I'm going to say it like it is, Orange Man is not so bad.
I definitely agree with that, like a lot what you said, but that last statement, like in particular, I think like people are kind of had enough.
Yes.
With
enough of division, or the way the world is now, or what?
Enough of the struggle.
Yeah. I think like the division's always going to be there. Cause I think we talked about this, yesterday, the division comes from your super, super far right and you're super, super far left.
Yes.
Right.
There's not one side.
The extremes.
Not one side is innocent.
And those are the loud, vocal minority.
Yeah. So those are the ones that you're
the minority. Good.
Yes. Yeah. Those are the ones that you're never going to get rid of. They're always going to be there. So there's always going to be some sort of, poking the bear person to encourage that division. But I do think that people are like, you're still going to have your Biden supporters. I get it. Support who you want.
Not The Rock.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. Support who you want if you're willing to back it up. That's
own it.
Yeah,
own
that's
it.
kind of my thing, and I'll get into that in a second. But I think people have kind of people are really starting to stop getting their news from the news, and they're getting it from other avenues, podcasts, X, Twitter, right? People, and it like, I think sometimes it like sparks something for them. They're like, oh shit, like, is that legit? Let me maybe do some research on this on my own.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what I encourage everyone to do when it comes to really anything. But since we're talking about politics, it's, I was talking to someone a couple weeks ago and it was like, oh, you don't support Trump, do you? And I'm like, well, like, why wouldn't you? Yeah. Like, I'm not saying I do or don't, but why wouldn't you? Like, I'm trying to get better and better with asking questions. People.
Yeah.
I'm like, why wouldn't you? Like, what is better? Like, I even said, like, remove COVID. Like, I don't even want to talk about that as being a thing, because it's, who the hell knows how Biden would have handled it? Who knows how Clinton would have handled it? How Bush would have handled it? Like, no one knows what those presidents would have done, right? It was uncharted territory. No one was really prepared for it, however you want to look at it, right?
The bats.
Yeah. Ozzy Osbourne.
The pangolin.
Ozzy Osbourne.
Ozzy Osbourne is COVID immune.
Yeah,
for sure.
He thought
it was a prop.
Dude, I've been eating bat heads for a long time.
He fucked up. He thought it was a prop.
Dude, he is the monkey from Outbreak.
Yeah.
But that's how they got.
I would say more of Patrick Dempsey, but whatever.
Yeah, that's how Pfizer got their thing. It's from Ozzy Osbourne's blood.
No, it was brought to you by Pfizer.
Yeah, sorry. So like.
Shit, we're totally getting deleted for that. Get that out of there. Get that out of there.
But yeah, I mean, I think like I asked her like, what's better that happened? The 4 years that Trump was in office, and the last almost 4 years that Biden's been in office. Like, what's been better? And she's like, well, I think Trump's an asshole and Biden's senile, so I'm not voting for anyone. I'm like,
they're going
there's the
personality.
Yeah,
and character.
I'm like, is Trump an asshole? Yeah,
character does matter. Let's be very clear.
I don't think it does.
You don't think character matters?
I want someone. I think it's kind of funky. It depends, but
because the character would matter if it was. To say it doesn't matter at all, it would matter if it was firing back against you. If some politician, nameless, faceless politician, was like, character doesn't matter.
It shouldn't matter, but it does.
I'm going to institute martial law because I feel like it.
Yeah.
I mean,
but is that
character would matter?
Is that a character issue or is that a senile? Like I'm just a dick issue.
Okay, so I got one more for you.
They could be young and ask for martial law. It's not.
No, I'm not saying like in that senile age, just like you're just crazy. Like,
so I got one more for you.
That's character.
If let's just say if there was a life or death situation and you had one of those men at your side and you had to pick one to save your life,
physically or
no, just decision wise.
Yeah.
If they had to make a soldier kill somebody else to save your life,
Mitch McConnell.
I'm leaving. Fucking leaving.
I'm sitting like this for the rest of the episode.
I'm leaving.
Dude. He's Mr. Freeze. So I'm pretty sure
that's another huge problem.
He would use his ray gun and freeze them in space, and I'd be good.
Yeah. You're right though. Where you're going,
I can't argue that. You derailed my argument.
Like if somebody stared at you that hard, like if somebody invaded my house and if somebody broke into my house and Mitch McConnell's at the front door, what would you do?
Well, I mean, if we're doing that,
what would you do?
Not even blinking.
Just staring a hole to you.
Well, if that's the case, then I'm going to
guard dog, Mitch McConnell.
Well, if that's the case, I'm going to take Nancy Pelosi's husband's friend with the hammer.
Oh my God.
That's my defender.
There it is. Oh my gosh.
Go. To answer your question, though, right?
But so who would you, if you had to have somebody make the decision to save you and your family? I don't care if he said that something.
I understand. I don't care that you're making.
I don't care if he said something on Twitter. Yeah, I fucking bombed them, and they got it. They got the biggest bomb. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Fantastic bomb.
I dropped the best bombs, the only bombs.
But again, I think everything has context. Everything has context. Because I believe corruption is pervasive and deep and partyless. Let's flip the script. I'm not here to argue who is correct and who's incorrect in terms of what
you're incorrect.
Cool. In terms of what that individual says to be true. So what I would argue, because you know me, I love playing the devil's advocate. What I would argue is a woman who felt that Trump had physically abused them would not choose him to protect to a woman
True.
like that. Nothing.
But he said that she wasn't his type.
But so you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
To people who are victims, nothing is better than victimhood. To people who are not victims, activity is better than nothingness. Do you follow?
Okay, so let's go.
Like that's why it's hard to argue with people who have varying perspectives.
Yes,
I see where you're going with that.
Though. Yeah, and that's one of those things too, because again, you have money plays a part of everything. Because you said money is the divisive. Money is the root of all evil. Let's just be real.
Yeah.
It all revolves around that. I think that there's also something else that plays into it with Trump, that he doesn't play by the elite's rules because he doesn't owe them anything. He's not a real politician. He never made.
Now he owes somebody like $440 billion.
No, but what I'm getting at is that he never glad-handed anybody to get to where he's at.
Right.
Yes. He didn't need the PACs and the super PACs that I was talking about earlier.
So now you look at Biden. He's been a politician for 50 years. How many?
He was like 20 something.
Yeah. So how many promises has that man made over his lifetime that he has to fulfill now? And now
has been fulfilled. We don't know.
We don't know. But what I'm getting at is he may be so far deep in making promises, he's no longer his own politician. No, they're not his rules. They're not his policies anymore. So that plays into it too. So I guess what I'm getting at is, so you got all these politicians who don't play by their own rules and their own policies, and Trump does, and he doesn't owe them anything. So now he's not a part of this group. He's not a part of this elite. So now he's almost taking bullets from all angles. His own parties, other parties, where now, and this is a conspiracy completely. Was that story implanted to create a divide? Because guess what? The only people not voting for Trump and not for Trump are the middle-class white women. They are the biggest demographic that do not vote for Trump. Why? Because they're offended on how he speaks. They're offended on that story. They think that he is this piece of shit that
The root of all evil.
yes, they think he's the worst guy and he treats women bad. But is that true? Or is that something that was created through somebody else, through stories, through money? Do they truly know who he is? We don't know that. We don't know that these stories actually happened.
And
we don't know any of that.
Let me ask you.
None of us were there.
Because so what you're getting into, which I'm vibing with the unknown, because I feel like the unknown is this. I feel like the unknown is this loaded gun that everybody uses, but has no powder to it. Do you know what I'm saying?
Correct.
Because they don't know what they're charging. They're just firing off. And I want to go to something that you said. You were talking about the extremes and the edges, the extreme on the right, the extreme on the left, and this divisive force. I believe, and you brought up the media, I believe that the media is very intentional about targeting those audiences specifically.
Their political opponents.
The media no longer plays in the middle. They play on these extremes, and then they pipe up these extremes. So
I'll add to that.
This demographic that you're talking about, where you're way over here and you're way over here. The best way to make, and this could go down a deep rabbit hole, but I don't want to go down this rabbit hole today. But the way to make a minority seem big is talk about it all the time and over-represent them.
Correct.
So when you're talking about a certain class, a certain group, a certain this, a certain story, a certain this, you boost it up, boom, 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 boom. Now, data starts to matter less. Evidence starts to matter less. And it's just about the agenda that you're pushing, again, by the extremes through these media companies that are controlling the narrative. Now you have these stories being woven, and they're not woven with as much truth as they once were. They're woven with
woke
agenda, but that's
they're woven with woke.
But that's one form of agenda
on the left,
because I believe that's the left's agenda. But there's an equal agenda on the right that's just varied. You know?
Yeah.
I get my hat next week.
Yeah. Speaking of like that, I think I don't want to get into that, but
yeah,
a great example, I'm sorry, is this one TV show. It's a whole woman cast.
We already know, so you don't have to say.
Yeah, I'm going to say it, and I'm going to tag it.
No, we'll just say it rhymes with few.
Yeah, has to be
and pew pew.
Yeah,
and pew pew.
Yeah, pew pew. Pew, pew, pew. Has to be the biggest bunch of trash on TV right now.
So,
it's not because of their views. It's not right because I can read
because there's they're on both. There are people representing both sides on that too. Sometimes
ish because that's where the rhino comes in.
Like I don't even, and we talk about this as well. Like I really don't care what your view is. Like I don't. Like if you're left, if you're right, I'm good with it. Back it up. Right. And I'll respect you for what your belief is. I'm not going to not like you because you like Biden. I might think you're an idiot, but I'm not going to tell you that either.
So you know what? And I'm going to defend that show right now. And I really shouldn't. But what I'm going to get at is, so we want to be, this is an objective pod. This is an objective pod. We will take all perspectives. I think that's important. Yes. Yeah. And again, this is not my own idea, but at the same time,
the three of us don't agree on everything.
No, that's fine.
And I heard this again, the same episode of Rogan with Schultz. But I have always believed this and I still do. Think about our workday. Think about what we do. Whether we believe, if we have a policy in place, whether you have your curriculum, whether you have your safety policies, whether I have my procedures, at a certain point, somebody makes a decision and you fall in line. Because if you don't fall in line, guess who's getting fired and guess who's not getting paid? And I guess who's not taking care of their family? And guess who has to go home and explain to their family why we're not putting food on the table? So what I'm getting at is when you go to these media entities, when you go to some of these people pushing these narratives, they may not be really doing it ill-intended, what they truly believe. But when they say, hey, I'm paying you X amount of dollars, this is the story you're covering. This is what you're going to say. Yeah. Because if you don't do it, you will no longer cover any stories.
Yeah. Or you're talking about back deals in the media company. Yes. It's like, you will run this political story, you will do this research, and then I will let you write your hit piece
Bingo.
on people who are abusing dogs.
Bingo.
Stuff
So-
like
so-
it's
Oh, yeah.
it's
Yes.
compromises
Yes.
they
Is
make.
that-
Stuff
It's
like
kind of
that.
like quid pro quo, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you fall in line.
Squid pro row.
So that's
That's a lot right there.
so that goes back to all the with media, like mainstream media and the pew pew.
Yeah. pew-pew.
When you get into these entities, they may not be bad people. We may not agree with their point of view. We may not agree with what they're saying.
I don't know that they're malicious. They
No.
don't have malice behind them.
Agreed, but they still have to provide for their families. They still have to make a living. Now, some people get paid a little bit more handsomely than the next. And I'll give them that. That's where I'm defending them, because at a certain point they fall in line. And can we fault them for falling in line? No, because we all do it.
We all fall in
We
line.
all, one way or another, we all fall in line at some point in our lives. So to pass judgment, we'd be hypocritical. Do we want them to have morals and values? Of course, but we are no longer in that time.
Yeah.
So the mainstream media, I'm sorry, but to me, they're no benefit to me. I'm not going to watch them. I'm not.
It's just trash.
Yeah, because it's they don't, the way they cover the stories, you almost have to read between the lines.
Yeah, and that goes on all of them, right? Like
All of
even
them. Not-
Fox, right?
yeah,
Fox
not-
is a
yes.
very Republican, very right,
Correct. They're
very right
they-
network, and that's all they talk about. So it's
Correct.
It's like it's like almost kind of funny, like especially when they make fun of someone from that same show.
Correct.
Like it's funny you say that though, because about them falling in line, and I'm sure that's a lot of it for a lot of these people because they want jobs, and I think that's where I would say I think it's like 5 of them on that show. I would say 3
this week and the next week, 15. Who knows?
You
it
don't
bounces
know.
around.
You don't know.
And,
Yeah.
and it's obvious too because they don't know their facts. At
No.
all. Which is embarrassing.
Sunny Hostin, sorry to drop her name, but the other day
Yeah.
when she was talking about the eclipse and
Bro.
cicadas, she called them cicadas, and the way she was describing, and Whoopi was like kind of going at her like, you're kind of wrong.
Yeah.
And that was one time where I was like, get her.
Yeah, you get her, Whoopi.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
I was siding with her, but at the same time, when you go into a story, when you have that following and you sound like an ass,
Yeah.
and you don't know what you're talking about,
It's
I mean, how do I
ridiculous, dude.
follow that?
I know. And-
How do I believe anything you're saying?
Yeah, I would say like there's 2 of them on that show that are not really good at their jobs. They're not good at following in line because they don't do the research on their own.
No.
And that is Whoopi, and that is Joy Behar. Like,
Yeah.
Joy Behar was literally ripping on Donald Trump the other day because of the way that he makes fun of people, and then she turns around and rips on him
It makes fun of him
and makes fun of him. I'm like,
in the same sentence.
are you like, do you not know what you just did? Like, you literally just contradicted yourself. If you think it's such a bad thing that this guy's making fun of people, and then you go around and make fun of him, do 2 wrongs make a right? Like, it's like we're going back to 3rd grade here, but you're an idiot.
And then you go back
It's
to
ridiculous.
and then you
It's
could-
just so like it's such poor trash TV.
and you could throw that my comment earlier. Who's going to the shows? Who's in the studio audience? Middle class white women.
100%.
They're the biggest following. So, and
Yep.
I'm not trying to use that whole demographic and bash them, but it's a very prominent voting base, and one side understands if we can get their votes, we can get their votes. It's all a numbers game.
Let me ask you guys something crazy. So in this conversation, I want to shout out to my boy Mike up in Madison. He brought up a very interesting solution. I don't know that I would call it a solution, but I'd love to hear your guys' input. We're
Rock
talking
'em, stock 'em.
we're talking
Yes.
we're talking about the media. We're talking about the elite. We're talking about all of these things. He made this wild proposal, and this would obviously be something we could meet out and pull apart the threads of a little bit. But he said, you know how you solve all of this? You get rid of political parties, you get rid of politicians, and here's what you do. Just like jury duty, every U.S. citizen of blank, we have qualifications to be senators, whatever.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Every U.S. citizen born on American soil who has voted over the past 12 years, we could determine those qualifications later.
Mhm.
Doesn't matter if you're homeless, doesn't matter what your gender, ethnicity, anything. You get called to quote unquote jury duty within your state at X representative level. Now you get called to Senate duty on state level, blah, 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 blah. You still vote, but the people you have to choose from are randomized based on X base qualifications, and every citizen of the United States is up for grabs in that. And that tiers its way up to the presidential level. But you have obviously maximized checks and balances. And one of the big keys to his tongue-in-cheek, but also kind of serious proposal is super strict term limits.
That's one thing we're missing.
So you average citizen who gets put in this place, you will get paid $400K, like they do. You'll get paid $400K, even if you are homeless. We don't care. You can only serve 8 years. Period. 6 years. Period. You're not serving for 97 years.
Damn it! I'm going to defend somebody right now, and I don't want to.
But
I'm going to defend somebody.
This was a proposal. Defend the person, and then I'd be interested to hear not only your thoughts on my boy Mike's vague, unfleshed out proposal, but if you guys have some kind of alternative that you think could, in a quirky way, hold everyone accountable and help fix the system.
Yes, and I only want to touch base on the term limits. Let's go to Biden. He's been there for 50 years in politics, and he hasn't done anything significant. He's run 3 times for president. He finally wins. His own previous president that he was vice president for really doesn't like him. That's people who pay attention do understand that. What I'm getting at is, let's think about our jobs. Let's think about our careers. If you work for a company for 50 years and they treat you like crap all 50 years and you don't do anything, you don't get promotions, you don't get notoriety, people shit on you, people make fun of you, that's just Joe.
Yeah.
50 years, you build up animosity. Finally, this guy wins by default because again, people don't like somebody's mouth on Twitter, because somebody doesn't like somebody's personality. This guy, because of COVID, whatever, all these things that came and created the perfect storm, he now gets into office and he could do some damage. What if his ultimate, the way you guys treated me, is fuck all of you? I'm dead in a few years anyway. What if this is his ultimate fuck you to everybody? So you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not trying to defend him, but if we're in the same situation, will we be pissed off at our own job? What if that's all this is about? Is fuck all of you?
It's a good point. I mean,
that's an interesting hypothesis. I don't know.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
think
the dude did nothing for 50 years, and now all of a sudden we're all living like shit under his power.
I mean, just think, like,
He's a politician. They work for us, and that's one thing we're getting away from.
Yeah.
Politicians work for us, and we give them too much power for too long.
Yeah, I do think that there is a term limit's got to be a thing. I think there's an age limit that's a thing. Just like there's a minimum to be a president, what's a 35?
Yeah.
There should be a maximum too. What that is?
If you can't
36.
get a driver's license, if you can't get a driver's license, how can you run our government?
Correct.
I
No, that's a
don't
great point.
I don't understand
No.
it. You can't pass a vision screening.
Joe
But how
Biden
do you
is
run
the
our
guy-
government?
Joe Biden's the guy on 47 that I drive by with one of these moves, like the
But and
When I
here's,
pass
let's
it,
add to
I'm,
it.
like, annoyed
They
by his
encourage us to
existence.
retire at 62 and a half, but yet 20 years later, he can still run for president.
yeah, and we've talked about this at length too. Like, his age is a concern. There is an age concern, I think, with being.
I don't. And again, this is party list. This is
Yeah,
not about a person. We just have this
This is just
example.
our scenario.
This is-
This is just
yeah.
where we're at today.
yeah.
It is what it is.
So like that needs to be in place, but it's almost not even his age that's the problem, because Donald Trump, yeah, he's old, but like
He's like 4 years younger. or
yeah,
something
but
he's still up
like-
there.
he's
He's still up
very
there.
old as
sharp.
well.
Yeah,
He's
but
still
he's
up
still
there.
sharp, right?
Yes, it's a
So age
cognitive.
doesn't always age doesn't always dictate your cognitive level, right?
Okay, but it could be sharper.
Yeah, it could be.
It could be.
right.
If
And
you
could
set
be.
the term limit, if you set the age limit
yes,
at, let's say, 64, I'm just making
Yeah.
up a random number. Like my parents are losing their hearing in
What?
the 70s. Like stuff happens. Do you know what I'm saying?
yeah, no, yeah, that's
So,
the
like-
progression of life. Like that's how it happens,
and that's legitimate, dude.
yeah, it is what it is. But what's really cool, and to continue with the glass half full mentality here, is that our next presidential term, whoever wins 2024 election, whatever, it's gonna be what it is. But it's really just a placeholder, and then we got some like new blood coming in 2028.
Do you,
Trump can't
do
run
you
again.
think so? Because we were hoping. I
I
think,
mean,
I think
who's
all of
old
us.
that's out there.
I think
that's gonna
all
run
of
for
us were
president.
hoping. I think all of us were hoping. A person that came up this past weekend when I was discussing these kind of things with my friends up in Madison was a name that has now been kind of a pillar of the middle ground, like Mitt Romney. At once upon a time, you're like, what? Now this dude seems moderate. You know what I'm saying? And that's
retired
because
he's old.
But that's because
He's too old.
when you're making
Loose
dudes,
skin.
when you're making dudes like that look like legendary and with it and all this kind of stuff, that's a problem. Like, cool. What are those? What do truly? If we're looking for great politicians,
They're not out there. I don't care what anybody says. They're not out there.
I tend to agree with you.
That's why we like Vivek.
But if we look,
Vivek like
Vivek.
cake.
Vivek.
Vivek like cake.
if we look for greatness, and you hear truly great athletes, whether they're or truly great people in their industry, say, I don't want to overstay my welcome. And that's usually one of the things that truly elite great people,
You know when to walk away.
like
Yeah.
Tom Brady was fantastic at 45. He just was. So talking about your term limits and stuff like that, like some people are great deeper into their career.
Mhm.
Some people are not.
We're talking Tom Brady's 1 in a million.
He is.
You know, so and that's
and
not
so
someone-
we
Could you
we
imagine Joe
we could-
Biden playing football?
But here's the thing. Tom Brady was 1 in a million
Thinks he's
at
playing hockey.
at 45. I don't know about you guys. That first Super Bowl in Tampa was fantastic, but it didn't make Tom Brady any more Tom Brady. It solidified that he was Tom Brady.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So like,
Yeah.
So if you have a fantastic politician, and let's say a term limit is set at 8 years, and the age limit is set at 60. That doesn't mean the dude or female would not crush it at 66.
I'm gonna go
But guess what? They were still awesome at 60. And they called it a wrap at their peak instead of seeing if they were still good at 66.
I'm going comic book for you.
Let's do it.
For you.
Yes.
Either you die a hero or you live long enough to be a villain.
Live long enough to see yourself become a villain. 100%.
So that's kind of what happened with Brady, but almost the opposite.
Yeah.
At the end of his
Dude,
career,
he lost his family for that one extra year where they went 7-9.
Idiot.
Yeah,
Bro.
What? That's his
he
ego.
should have just stopped because
That is going past your term.
That
limit.
is Joe Biden.
100
He Joe Biden the shit out of that last year.
see now.
I did it.
with Gisele
I was-
Bundchen and kids. Like, come
yeah.
I was
on.
just about to say he went out on top because let's be real, when he
did
left,
not go on top. He
Went
went
out
alone.
on the bottom.
he should have. But that's what I'm saying. He should have. My bad.
on his
Misspoke.
face.
He should have.
Yeah, on his side.
Because when he was with New England, everybody hated him.
Yeah.
Cuddled.
He went to Tampa Bay. Everybody became a fan. We're like, let's see him do it because he will be the greatest of all time. I am a fan of his. Let's just see him do one and done. Because if he can
And
do it in 1 year,
I don't think
he's the best.
didn't he win his second year? He was there 3, right?
First
No, it
year
was
there.
his first year.
First year
His
there.
First year
Yes.
there.
Yeah.
First year there. And that was what made it so great. And if he had just walked away, bro, that's all you needed to
That's a
do.
wrap. Tampa would have taken it too because they got their Super Bowl out of it.
That's
Yep.
it. Walk away.
Yeah.
Walk away.
Dude, that would have been an epic mic drop. Just like everyone truly believes
Be gone.
Jordan should have been done after 98.
Should have never.
Did-
Well, he should never left. When he
Conspiracy
left the Bulls,
theory.
He's just retired.
Kobe Bryant wanted to play with him in Washington. Could you imagine that?
Hmm.
That would have been something to watch.
Yeah.
So, my buddy's theory. Do you guys have what are your thoughts on it? And do you have any thoughts on so we discussed term limits for sure. I think that's kind of uniform. I think most citizens of the United States would be behind legitimate term limits.
Yeah.
Yes.
100%.
So
Yes.
I
You
think,
wouldn't find
but,
You have that for president, but not for representatives.
for sure.
That's
ri-
the stupidest thing ever.
ridiculous.
Zero sense. That's
It's
where you get all the
ridiculous.
problems out.
Not only that.
So dumb.
Let's go into, and I openly will. I think each of us has a bias. I shared this with my beautiful wife yesterday. I think that there's corruption on all levels of government, but the level of the branch of government I trust the most because of the restrictions, laws, and things they are forced to abide to is the judicial branch. So I think, but even there, like, should a judge serve till they croak?
No,
No,
because they can't make sound
No.
decisions either. We should not hold them to a different standard.
Not only that, why are you just getting to the Supreme Court at age 259. Like, you should probably be eligible.
That's the
for
youngest
Supreme,
one.
You should probably.
That's the rookie.
You should probably be eligible for Supreme Court. Like, take some
At
time
least
to get in the
100.
career. 50,
Yeah.
like 50 to 70. You know what I'm saying?
Ooh, that's
They could be
even
a little
pushing
old,
it.
but
But yes.
I'm not saying 20 years, but that is
no,
like when
but you're right.
Yeah.
In that,
you've served long enough. You've had to serve for 20 some years. You've seen crazy cases. You've had to work on different levels. You can't be there at 35.
No,
You can't.
No,
you know what? I'll say right now, and this is a completely different job function, but in Illinois, you have to be a firefighter or a police officer by 35 because of your pension.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, you put 20 years in. 55 should be when you can go to that portion of your career.
I do think that there's a big.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'll agree with you on that
Yeah,
one.
there's a big. There's a lot to say about experience, like experience outweighing.
In certain careers,
Yeah.
experience is better than
We talk about this for
curriculum or
yeah,
what you
we talk about
know.
this for teaching,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like, you might like have a teacher that's been in teaching for 5 years that is an awesome teacher, but they're in uncharted territory with a lot of situations that maybe you have dealt with in your 40 years of
And-
teaching. You know,
but they balance it out. There's a balance.
Yeah.
I've talked about my career in that when I started my career, I was at my hippest, my most relevant, but like least skilled
Mhm.
curriculum wise. And this one goes up and this one goes down.
Yeah.
And your kind of perfect nook is when you're in the middle, when you're like, wow, I am still relevant enough. Yeah, I don't know who.
segue.
I couldn't even say the names because
This
I
is
don't
a
know.
segue.
We're
But I couldn't know these people. But
Yeah.
But I also am more skilled in my job than I was when I was super hip and 24, but just wanted you to like me.
Yeah.
we're talking about this today at work, that our leadership at work, whether they're evil geniuses or whatever they're doing, they took the smartest person. We have an engineer. She's been with our company for a couple of years, but she's the smartest person by far in our department. She's like 26. She has a college degree. They put the next person that knows the industry, me at 17 years.
Mm-hmm.
What do? Pair us up, get everything done. We go completely different direction. I mean, we're like this. Not like we don't argue, but we have
You
different.
see things.
We
differently.
see things differently. So it's just like,
You're
ooh.
looking at it differently too.
Yeah, it's like, ooh, I got to think book wise. What is she seeing? And she has to think, ooh, industry wise, what is he seeing?
Yeah.
So it's like one of those things where it's like they're creating two minds, like almost like two rams coming at it. And like, let's see what you guys come up with.
Yeah.
Like,
Smart.
and it is very smart, but they took a risk. Are these two going to get along? Because again, you have a female who went to college, a male who is in the industry, two completely different life paths. Go figure this out. Here you go. Here's your new project. Work together and figure it out. And with no direction.
Right.
So is that what's more valuable than the next? I think they're equally valuable,
Mhm.
but at the same time, it's like, it's kind of a smart move.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
Perspective matters.
For sure.
Yeah.
Good
So,
stuff.
so what would you guys make any changes? What would you do?
Burn it down.
And-
Start
and-
from fresh.
And what are we building from the ground up?
I don't know. Like, I think that's a super complicated question. I mean, I
Do
don't.
you have any idea of something? You're right. Obviously, there's no solution. But do you have any like? If
I think you
start this
I
from the
think you
ground
start
up,
with limits. I think you start with term limits.
You have to.
I think that's like the starting point, right? And then I don't know how you get rid of the people that are already there that
give
are
them
old.
their dang pension
Yeah.
anyway. Who cares?
Yeah,
Pay
like,
them.
hey, we're cutting it off at 70.
Yeah.
You're 72. You're 76. Here's
Bye.
200K
All
or whatever
of
the
you.
hell's in there.
Bye.
Yeah, go kick rocks. You're done here. Like,
and I feel like it should be more of a pension as opposed to like as far as a pension, get your lump sum, get whatever.
yeah,
you're-
whatever
Yeah,
like
whatever
a
they
normal
earned, entitled.
whatever a normal pension is, like how we are. Like this
Yeah.
is what you've earned,
100%.
but we're not going to give you $500,000 every year for the rest of your life.
No, but that's
Yeah.
but that's it. But I mean, speaking of all that money and which is another great question. Like, how do these politicians? How are they multimillionaires when their salary is next level?
Supposedly XK
Yeah.
a year, not
How much?
million.
What was Nancy Pelosi's salary?
As
Isn't it
She
like
was
a couple
speaker,
hundred
right?
thousand?
Was she speaker?
She wasn't it a couple 100,000? a year?
presidents?
It's like 200.
presidents. I believe it's 200,
$399.
because presidents are supposed to be about 400.
$399 because
Oh,
anybody
really?
over 400 gets in a different tax bracket.
Scum. So let's just say she makes 200
about
grand a
that.
year. We'll just keep it there. I don't know what it was. How are you a multimillionaire?
She's great
Because
in the
everything
stock
else,
market.
dude, because
Yeah.
everything else. Oh, yep.
'Cause you're a
amazing.
giant- Because you're a giant piece of shit. Like, You're old. That's really what it is.
And she has
Like,
a golden
In
hammer.
a sock.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Her husband's
I saw that.
Yeah. Her husband's getting beat up in the middle of the night. It's madness, bro. The guy who beat him up wants to know how they make all this money. That's what his problem was. But like, how do they make all this money?
Now, if Mitch McConnell was in that door, wouldn't have been touched.
answers the door, just Mitch McConnell standing there.
Wouldn't have been touched.
You're like, whoa, easy, Mitch,
Easy.
easy, Mitch. But like, I do think you start with the term limits. I think you start with you figure out the age piece to it. You get the old geezers out of there. You just do, right? Because if they can't get a damn driver's license, why are they having any part in decision making in the country? That's scary, right? I mean, I don't know. You go to our Walmart on a Sunday morning in our town.
But maybe it was a 10-year plan.
I believe
old balls. Sorry,
I would add on to that. I think representation should be legitimate. I think representation, first of all, and I want to be very clear, everybody who's done, again, I think that there needs to be this ground level of X number of years as a citizen, blah, 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 qualifies as, I haven't fully fleshed this out. I'm kind of winging this, but I feel like
This is all we ever do. It's fine.
I think there should be tiers to your rights. Everyone gets to the Bill of Rights, amendments, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Everyone gets to vote, everything this. But if you have lived in the country for 12 years or you were born here or whatever, now you are qualify as like some kind of like representation clause. And the reason I'm bringing up this specific representation clause is because I would want it to be legitimate, something that is data driven. But if you're a legitimate representative in this representative clause, whatever you want to call it, now everything should be standard in some way towards demographics. So let's say you're a representative of Koreatown. You know, you should probably be Korean. Just a thought. I'm serious.
You're not wrong.
You're representing those people.
You're not wrong. That's kind of a good point.
If you're in the state of Montana and the House of Representatives in the state of Montana should look like the state of Montana.
Like the shape or?
Well, like what they do in movies, right? They go very stereotypical in like old school movies. To kind of like to
do
make
they
fun.
go to the train station?
Yeah.
So
they do that on purpose.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Anna busted out these statistics and I don't remember them exactly, but she busted out the ratios of like the percentages of ethnicities, genders, and all this other kinds of stuff across the country. And then in like districts and stuff like that. And like, we don't follow any of it. And we should, if these people again fulfill these certain representation clauses. So like, for example, if you take a district within the city of Chicago and it is 95% African-American within the representation clause, people who've lived here for 12 years, blah, 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 then you know who 95 out of the 100 representatives should be? African-American. This is not complicated stuff.
I'll build on that. So you said, okay, so a representative maybe from the city, or you have one from the Kane County or Cook County.
Yeah.
They should also, let's build in your little 12-year citizen, whatever, of a certain time.
Whatever
Guess
that
what?
becomes.
I don't think that, because you have some representatives and some people who will jump districts and just
can't do it.
You have to be a resident of this county to be a representative for X amount of years, because you are somebody who's lived here. You understand how it operates, because let's be real, counties around our state, they drastically vary, because we have very prominent blue counties that run our state, but you go throughout the state, it's a very red state.
I think what's hard, and we talked about term limits.
Yeah, there are maybe three prominent, very heavily populated counties that kind of run everything for us.
And this is relating to Wisconsin, where my friends were, like very, very red, very traditionally red state, but the population resides in Madison and Milwaukee, which are entirely blue. So like this is where I think, so we found term limits. I think that's a good, we all agree on that. And I think representation needs to be done with fidelity.
Can
and
we?
trust? Like, if you, I think representation is a lie. I think a lot of the problems we deal with is lies and representation.
Yes.
People, like you were saying, hopping from here to here. Oh, I lived in this state for 13, or they have their beach house in that state, or
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Well, that's like our own governor when COVID and everything was going on. He wasn't even in the state making rules. He was living down by Florida's rules with his gold fucking toilets. You know, like let's be real. Like stuff like that happens. You are telling your constituents you need to abide by this rule of the land,
And then they don't.
and they don't, because guess what? I'm going to go to a state where guess what? Their governor is doing it right.
Yeah, right. Take advantage of things that are.
But guess what? Rules for thee, but not for me. So therefore, you know what? You guys are going to be up there masked. You guys are going to be up there doing it. And you know what? On occasion, I might come up there, put on my mask for maybe 30 minutes, and I'm going to leave right after.
Yep, I'm dipping.
Sorry, guys. You know, and that's, again, you know, that shit shouldn't be allowed. Because you know what? You want to make us abide by this rule? Live by the rule.
What would you?
Yeah, live by it.
It's hard, man.
Yeah.
Hypocrisy.
And that's all politics is.
In the politicians' world right now is through the roof, and maybe that's where some of that division comes from that you kind of touched on to begin with.
Yeah, and I don't think it's going anywhere, because that's, you know, a lot of people feel certain ways. And going back to your blue and red, whatever, I would like to donate Cook County to Wisconsin.
You guys get it.
Yeah. They can have Wisconsin can have Cook County.
Wait, you guys get it?
Yeah,
I'm going to call it
Me?
yeah. You went to school.
I went
Yeah.
to college there for 4
By
years.
choice.
so
you count.
But guess
I've
what?
been there a couple
you
times.
go too.
I've been to the Dells.
You
Does
went
that
there-
count?
You went to Madison by choice, dude.
Yeah, I also went to the Dells
I
by
love
choice.
Madison.
And you know what? I'm combining.
Madison's 100% better than Nashville.
I'm
Yeah,
combining
it's a
two
fire town.
cities. Shiwaukee. Move 'em. Shiwaukee. Leave them.
Shiwaukee. No,
Leave
no.
them alone. Get them out of here.
Well, we thank you guys for joining us on a pretty, what I would say, more intense than our normal stuff.
Yeah,
but this is all stuff we care about. It's real. Wherever you guys fall on the side of the line, we hope that we represent you and that we're honoring your words. Feel to jump in the comments and let us know how you feel about this kind of stuff. You know, we feel no bias up here.
No.
We just want good things for all people. We want all people to be loved, and we appreciate you guys checking us out. We'll see you guys next time on the More Taco Encounter.
I love you guys the most.
We love you.
Don't point at them.